Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Acoustic Analysis. I'm Warren, and today we're going to be running through Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band's classic hit from 1976, Night Moves, the title track from the album. We're going to take a look at how to play the song all the way through, who wrote it, who produced it, some of the people who played on it, a little bit of the history there. We're going to talk about why it was important to Bob Seger himself, and we're going to ask the immortal question, what does it all mean, Basil? And then, of course, at the end, I'm going to play the entire song all the way through front to back, so stick around.
It's Acoustic Analysis.
Okay, so how do you play Bob Seger, Night Moves? It's in the key of G. Yeah. And he does sort of this, if you think the open G string, you kind of want to try, your goal is to try to let that string for the riff, to let it ring a little bit. And to sort of the other fingers that make up the G chord, for instance, bring them off on every other beat. So you let that ring, let the other one sort of be muted by your fingers. And the same thing when you go to the C. So it's G, F, C, G. So there you go. That's the verse. G, F, and C. Let's move to the chorus. E minor, D, C, D, E minor, D, C, again, D, E minor, D, C, C major 7, G, and then back to the riff. Okay, so let's talk about, there's a little quiet patch, and it goes to the G7, and then C. Oh, I want you. G again, and then C. Felt the lightning. Now it goes to F. Well, on the thunder. And it goes to D. And then there's the slow little stop part, which is, that's just a, I'm just using one finger on the on and off on the G chord there. I woke last night to the sound of thunder. And then to the C. How far off I sat and wondered. Just the same chords through there. The end bit. Just at the very end of the song, it goes, Night Moves! With the backup singers. So it repeats just the verse again. And then at the very end, it goes to E minor, to B minor, A minor, C, and then ends on the G. That's it. Those are all the chords. Fairly easy song. It's actually recorded with acoustic guitar. Bob wrote it on acoustic guitar. He played the acoustic guitar on the actual track itself, which we'll get to right now when we talk about who produced, who wrote, and everything else. Yes, Bob Seger himself wrote this song. He wrote most of his materials. He occasionally would dabble in covers, especially on Live Bullet. He did some old Motown type of tunes, and because that was his roots. He really, I mean, he's from Motown. He's from Detroit. He's a Detroit boy through and through. And most of the stuff throughout the rest of his career, though, he wrote himself, including this one, and it was produced. Now, here's an interesting story. Okay, this track itself was not produced by his producer. His producer was also his manager and had produced pretty much everything. He had like 6 or 7 albums up until Night Moves. They were all produced by Punch Andrews. Punch Andrews, Edward is his actual name, but they call him Punch. Probably because he liked to punch in the studio and do retakes. I'm just guessing. Or maybe he really liked a good fight. You decide. I have no idea. So, Punch did not want to produce this particular song. He produced every other song on the album, but not this one. This one, he wanted more of a commercial, a proven commercial tone. He wanted this song to be Bob's breakthrough. Oh! It worked. It was. So where did he go? He went to a studio called Nimbus sound in Toronto, Ontario, which was only a 4-hour drive on the Highway 401 between Detroit and Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And he used a guy by the name of Jack Richardson. Jack was one of the owners of Nimbus, and he was also the longtime producer of a Canadian superstar band called The Guess Who. So Punch loved the sound that he got with all the Guess Who work, and based on that, recommended that Bob do the song Night Moves specifically there. Okay, but what about the rest of Night Moves? Well, this is the first studio album with the Silver Bullet Band, so the Silver Bullet Band only plays on less than half of it. They play on all of side A except Night Moves. A couple of them are on this track, though. Side B of the album is played by the Swampers from Muscle Shoals. Famous studio musicians, played for Otis Redding, played for Aretha Franklin. There's a whole other story there for Muscle Shoals. Check out the documentary if you haven't seen it. It's fascinating, really is. But they played on side B. This track, the title track, listen to it right next to Main Street, another big hit, similar type of tune, sounds completely different than this song because they're different musicians, and mostly, and different engineer, different producer. So this has got 3 or 4 engineers on this whole album, plus 2 different producers, and a whole ton of different musicians. So there is no cohesive sound throughout the entire album, track to track to track. It jumps around. This one in particular was his first big hit off of it. So I guess whatever formula that they used in Toronto with the backup singers and studio musicians brought in locally, Canadian people. The backup singers were Canadian girls. The piano player was a Canadian. The electric guitar player, the keyboardist, and the Hammond organ. All of that was locally sourced Canadian talent. Kind of interesting. I mean, Detroit is basically across the river from Canada at Windsor, right? So why not use some of the best talent in the world that's at your doorstep? Yeah, baby. Go Canada. So that's the story basically of how it was recorded. But why was this an important track to Mr. Seger? Or Cigar, if you prefer. He had been what would you call a regional success at this point? Massive in Detroit. I'll give you an example about regional success for Bob Seger. Chicago is not that far away. I mean, it's farther than Toronto is, but Detroit to Chicago. Detroit, he played 15,000 fans in the hockey arena for the Detroit Red Wings. He went the next day and played in Chicago for a soft seater for like 800 people. That's what I mean by regional success. Superstar in a few little cities like Pittsburgh, the Rust Belt kind of. And then the rest of the country and the States had practically never heard of him. And he'd been around. 6 albums he had under his belt at this point. Nothing. And he had never also recorded until this point with the Silver Bullet Band. This is their first studio album, although technically the second release because Live Bullet was a bit of a success with Turn the Page, the album before this. And it was only regionally successful. It became as a back catalog hit later after Night Moves broke. A lot of Bob's older stuff that you're probably now familiar with became big hits later. That's what happens. The back catalog takes off after that initial breakthrough album. The initial breakthrough album for Bob, in this case, this is it. And this is the song. This is Bob's first international hit, Night Moves. And it was it did pretty well for him. It was number 4 on the Billboard charts, which is not number 1 with a silver bullet in this case, but number 4 with a silver bullet. It's pretty darn good. He sold over 6 million units. That's a good number. 6 million. I'm jealous. And his career took off from there. So this was his landmark, his breakthrough album. Most important, no doubt. But let's ask the question, what does it all mean, Basil? I love this story. This is a fun one, folks. Okay, Bob Seger had been working on writing this song for years, and it had never made it onto any of his previous studio releases because he wasn't happy with it, and Punch Andrews also apparently wasn't happy with it. And then they tried a few demos of it. It just wasn't gelling. That's, I think, why they kind of gave up and wanted new eyes and new ears on the song itself and sent him off to Nimbus Sound in Toronto with Jack Richardson. And where it all gelled, he finished the arrangement. He made it acoustic all the way. The acoustic is the main thing. This is the main instrument through all of this, so we don't really have... And, oh, I bet you he used one of these. Listen to the track and listen to this when I play it all the way through. You tell me, I think, to my ear, he's playing a Gibson J200 just like this. That's my guess anyway. So, the song means he had an affair when he was 19 years old in the summertime in Detroit, just outside of Detroit, Ann Arbor, Michigan, with an Italian girl, black-haired beauty with big dark eyes. He was 19 years old. It was like his first, they were exploring each other. He used her, she used him. I think, personally, she used him. End of story. I think Bob was in love, baby, because he drew his inspiration on their affair for many years to come. If you listen to other lyrics, you can hear her in those lyrics like a rock. I think that was written about the same summer. I might be wrong, but I don't think I am. Listen, it's all about the summer that he came of age when he was 19 years of age. And why I say that she used him and he was heartbroken is because, come on, Bob, this is like 10, 15 years after the fact and you're still mourning her and writing a song? I mean, yeah, right, you didn't care, you used her. Sure you did, buddy, whatever you say. I'll give you more proof. She was having an affair with Bob, basically, because her boyfriend, to which she was practically engaged, was in the armed forces and he was overseas. At the end of the summer, he came back to Detroit. They officially got engaged and were soon married. Bye-bye, black-haired beauty with big dark eyes. Points all her own, sitting way up high. So Bob's heart was broken. That's the story behind the song. In the back seat of his 60 Chevy, apparently it was actually a 61 Chevy. But 60 sounded better. That's pop music for you. So, what am I playing today? Geek out? I'm playing the 1959 Gibson J200, and like I say, listen to this, guys, because I think this might be what Bob played in the studio. I'd put money on it. All right, so let's do it. 1976, Bob Seger, the Silver Bullet Band title track from Night Moves. Let's do it.
Some awkward teenage blues.
Waiting on the thunder. Waiting on the thunder. I woke last night to the sound of thunder. How far off I sat and wondered. Started humming a song from 1962. Ain't it funny how the night moves when you just don't seem to have as much to lose? Strange how the night moves with autumn closing in. Night moves. Night moves. Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember. Oh, baby, you know I sure do remember the night moves. Yeah. I remember. Oh, yeah. I remember. I remember, Lord, I remember, Lord, I remember, oh, yeah, 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 I remember, I remember. There you have it, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, 1976. Night Moves, his breakthrough song. If you liked that, give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share. Share it with the world, baby. Thank you, and we'll see you for the next episode.